that gym went on to become a huge chain of gyms throughout Quebec.
The gym from Gatineau?
Yeah.
What was it called?
Usine.
Oh yeah, that's the one you guys went to the games with and all that kind of stuff.
And there was Gatineau, there was Montreal, Terrebonne, Boucherville, like all those like GT Greater Montreal area, like they all had, it was like franchise, and then it all just went down south.
Interesting.
I don't know.
I told you we just hired a guy that was
he hasn't been here yet.
No, it's because he's at OPC still. Dan Jessup is with him there too. At OPC.
What was his name again?
I have to look at. He had a French name, a hyphenated French name. It's like 29th in the country.
Yeah.
Small guy, like small. He's stocky. He's from Montreal. He's a CrossFitter in Montreal. He's ranked 29th in the country.
Yeah, he beat me in the Open this year.
Wow.
I forget his name. It's like something. Like.
His last name is hyphenated. Yeah, remember.
Interesting. All right. Well, welcome to
Luc Marchand. Sorry.
Oh, that's okay. Well, it's all good.
Pierre-Luc
Pretty organic.
Marchand.
Sorry.
Pierre-Luc Marchand. Welcome to the listeners to the NCR Podcast. Another episode. We are here with Mark Paterson of the Ottawa Police Force. Yes,
correct.
Got that correct.
As opposed to what, Nate?
The RCMP, dude. Chill.
Okay.
Could be that. We have a couple officers here from the RCMP. I'm pretty sure.
Yeah.
I don't know. Just want to check. Man.
Ottawa Police.
Aggressive today. All right. Rez and I were pretty excited for this episode.
Are you?
Yeah, you're a cool dude. You're like one of those people you just want to get to know, you know?
Nice.
Glad
to be here.
I also always wanted to be a police officer, so
Yeah, fair enough. I did when I was a kid. I remember that was the first thing I wanted to be ever. I remember that.
I'm still trying to recruit Reza to be a police officer.
I know. I've heard. I feel like a lot of kids like want to do that. You know what I mean? When they're real young, because they see like the uniform and all that kind of stuff, and they aspire to that a little bit. I don't know. At least I did when I first started.
The culture has changed a little bit, though, and I just had a conversation with two of my counterparts in Calgary, where recruitment is becoming difficult because the generation, Reza's generation, a little bit younger, don't have an aspiration to be a police officer anymore.
Well, yeah, it faded quick for me. Like, I wanted it when I was like 5, 6, 7, and then like quick after that, it changed.
Yeah,
it didn't stick.
You know, like with me personally, I think it was a little bit different because I work for Ottawa Community Housing as a security guard, which I think is pretty close to doing what a police officer would actually do in terms of like arresting people and like, you know, the
assisting people in times of need.
Yeah, the blue steel type stuff. And I just realized that like I wasn't. I wrote the test for the RCMP and passed, and then I was also really young at the time. You know, like if you had told me to apply like before the gym was open, I'd probably be more inclined to.
So what's stopping you now, Rez?
Well, I'm expecting a kid any day now.
Oh boy.
And keep going. And I've got the gym, so time.
You can still be a police officer when you have kids.
But it's a big commitment, right?
Yeah.
So, like
big
I said,
great career change, but if you want to make a difference,
hire me part-time, I'm down.
Is that a thing? Can you go like you know how the Army has Reg Force and Reserves? There's no such thing as that with like.
No, you can be an auxiliary with us, but you're not going to get powers of arrest or anything like that. We have auxiliary officers, but they're using for a different reason.
Special constables?
No, we have special constables as well, like court security officers are special constables. Those people within the cell block are special constables. But you can be an auxiliary officer and come out for parade events, and it's almost like a volunteer, but working with the Ottawa Police. You know.
Interesting.
If you ever need me to go undercover, I'll do it.
He's really good at putting on alternate personalities.
Yes, I've seen that.
Yeah, he's pretty good with that. What was your story getting into like police and all that kind of stuff?
Actually, I was an educator before I was a police officer.
Is that like teacher?
Yeah, and what ended up happening, I went to the final stage with the OPP and wasn't selected, so I put stuff on the back burner.
That's the other one. It could have been OPP. There was like 3 options.
I just wanted to make sure you knew your shit, man.
So after I didn't get selected by the OPP, I went the educator route. And then life is about perseverance. So after I did that for a bit, and I worked for a youth services bureau as a counselor in a residential outfit for young offenders.
Have we talked about that?
Yeah, you and I spoke about that. I worked for YSB, and I worked for Sherwood Detention Center as a counselor.
I did the same thing.
Which is phase 1, kids YOs. I decided to keep going and pursue policing. So what ended up happening is I applied to York, Peel, Ottawa. And I was at the same process between Ottawa and Peel. I got hired by Peel. On my way back from Peel, my background investigator called me and said, what happened? Because they knew I was involved with Peel Regional Police. I said I got hired. And the background investigator asked me where I wanted to work. I said, my fiance works here in Ottawa as a teacher, and I'd like to stay here. He goes, okay, I'll call you back. Called me back on the way home from Peel, and I was hired by Ottawa.
Wow.
So I signed my contract the next day, and that was in 1997.
Wow. How old were you at the time?
27.
27 when you joined. Interesting.
Yeah.
And so you were educating from like out of school till then, basically?
Yep. Yeah.
Right. Oh, okay.
Yeah. And then obviously, stayed here. I actually am not from here. I went to Carleton University, got my education there, and then stayed here in Ottawa. But being a police officer, like you spoke, Nate, was a passion of mine. I wanted to be. Then you get a little bit frustrated when you don't get selected, but you have to persevere. And for me, I'm in my 22nd year of policing now, and it's the best job ever.
Yeah, well, it's interesting to say that because for me, hearing from friends who have tried to do it, and I even have an uncle who was really passionate about it for so long, and that was it. Like a lot of people I've seen have tried, not been selected, and even in the first like 5 years of trying, and they've kind of been like, whatever, given up. You know what I mean? Like I've had a lot of friends who did like police foundations kind of thing, and then like security guard and all that kind of stuff, and they just kind of gave up after a couple years because they didn't want to be patient enough. And then like my uncle is the same thing. I think he tried for a long time. He's in Toronto, so maybe it's a little different, but yeah, same idea. So it sounds like that's kind of like a reoccurring thing, eh? Like,
yeah, and I think it is with any job though. And I as you know, working out at this gym, I'm passionate about recruiting people that I think would be good police officers,
right? That
have a desire, have the skill sets to do it, and being involved in the CrossFit community, I see people as team-oriented, and you have to be team-oriented to be a police officer in the organization you work. So, I'm passionate about it. I want to recruit people that have the KSAs to do it, but I think they have to be prepared that it's a process. You don't get hired overnight, and there's certain steps to be a police officer, and you have to be a little bit more patient. And I tell people to apply other jurisdictions as well. We want the best candidates here in Ottawa, and we're in a process now of trying to hire 100 people for the next 5 years. That's 500 people that we're trying to hire in the next 5 years. And which means you have to have a lot of recruits because not everybody passes. But those people that have a passion, desire to do it, that they should be persevering. And again, but it's not an easy process either, right?
Is that 500 person because of the generational gap that you're talking about? How like his generation didn't really want to be police officers, and now like all the baby boomers are like retiring?
We have a lot of retirements, but I mean, we obviously we look at expanding population here, and we'd have to have a certain amount of police officers to actually do the job. And because of that, we've seen that a shift in crime, and we've had to make sure that we have enough police officers here for population base.
Right. Interesting. What are the qualities you look for? Like if you're headhunting someone, what are like, do you have like some intangibles that you look for in a person?
Yeah, I mean, you want to have the experience.
What would the experience be?
Well, I think you have to have a varied amount of background experience in relation to your job, also life experiences. Volunteer work is key. Understanding the elements of policing. In good shape, obviously, with a fitness aspect, mentally sound. Volunteer, we're very big on people being involved in the community. So if you're here in the community and you're volunteering, whether it's United Way, Big Brothers Big Sisters, have a stable job, have some very good life experiences that deal with conflict resolution, etc., then I think you're a strong candidate.
Right. Interesting.
But I think being here at this gym, and I know we're going to speak a little bit more about that, but I've been here since January 2017, and Reza knows this. I'm a big proponent of physical fitness in policing because physical fitness ties in with mental wellness, and you can't have one without the other. And I'd like to see, I'm a big proponent to make sure that each service, we don't have mandatory fitness testing. I like to see mandatory fitness testing. I like to see it provincially as well as nationally, and that's a big aspect of it because of the job, because of the shift work when you're first starting out, but because of the pressures you face at your job. I think you need to have that physical fitness aspect, which will lead into the mental toughness to do your job.
Right.
Can I interject for a sec?
Go nuts.
So like Mark said, he was hired by Peel and Ottawa. Peel, when I wanted to be a police officer, was known particularly for their physical test. It was the craziest in like the country. Yeah. Right. So I just find it funny how Mark got hired by Peel. Because that goes to show that clearly physical fitness has always been something.
You find it funny that I got hired by the police service?
Well, you just failed to mention that Peel's test.
Yeah.
You know,
He's saying you weren't very fit before, I think.
Well, that test was, it was a 100-meter sprint. It was like a 2-mile run or 2-kilometer run. You had to do push-ups. You had to do sit-ups. There was a flexibility test. You had an obstacle course.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
I remember at one point, like when I decided I wanted to be a police officer, a friend of mine was applying to Peel, and he was like, you start training real hard. And I was like, what are you training for? He's like, the Peel police test. It's like the craziest one out there. And I was like, I just started training with him because I just was curious to see how I'd do in the test. I never did it, but I did the prep test several times, but the Peel's test was just like crazy. Mm-hmm. Like they were known to have the fittest cops.
Yeah. Interesting.
Yeah.
So
Mark was clearly in good shape.
Yeah. Let's talk.
That was when I was 27.
Well, let's talk about that. Let's talk about your athletic background, kind of what you did as like a kid growing up, and then lead into maybe a bit of how you found CrossFit and like started that. But let's start like way back.
Yeah, I mean, where I grew up,
Where'd you grow up?
in Napanee.
Napanee. Okay.
I was well, first of all, it was Elgin. I grew up in Elgin. A little bit about my background, and Reza probably doesn't know this either. Kind of getting off topic here, but one of the things that made me do my job very well and kind of relate to youth is when I was 1.5, my mother was incarcerated, and my father was not in the picture, so I was made a Crown Award. So I was put in CAS care for 2 years. And I had two twin brothers that were born a year before me, and they were put in CAS care as well. So I was adopted into an English-speaking family. My father was an alcoholic and was abusive.
This is in your foster family?
No, I wasn't adopted outside of my foster family. I lived in a foster care for 2 years. Okay. And then when I was adopted into a rather dysfunctional family, and my father was an alcoholic and abusive. At the age of 11, my mother and father and I went out for a drive. My sister at the time, I was 11, and my father threw a beer bottle at my head, and then my mom said that was it. We left. Mm-hmm. So I didn't speak to my father again after that time, and then my mother remarried. Not a very good situation either, and didn't have the strong parental influence at that time. So I mean, I've got a bit of history, and you know what. Life is about decision making. I could have easily gone the other way when I was a kid, and I didn't. So segue into sports. I looked at sports as an kind of a release for me. Yeah, way out. I played hockey, high level hockey. I was really involved in track and field. Mm-hmm. My aspiration when I was younger was to be a 100-meter sprint champion. Oh no, that never happened, obviously. But you know, I went hockey, and then I played football as well. When I came to Carleton University, I tried out for the football team and the rowing team. And when I was on the rowing team, my girlfriend was a coxswain at that time, and I had enough yelling in the boat and outside of the boat that I quit rowing as well. And then I got involved in university, and I'll tell you this, I was a very small individual growing up. In my first year of high school, I was 5 foot 95 pounds, and I got locked in my locker. My
sounds
locker.
Like my life, man.
Yeah.
I was so small when I started high school.
So I was 95 pounds my first year of high school, and then even when I left high school, we had grade 13 back then. I went to university, and I was 160 pounds my first year of university. I went and played football and tried out as a defensive back. Didn't go well for me. Bottom line is I gained 40 pounds. My first year of university, I hit the gym. I started to do my own programming for weightlifting, and I gained 40 pounds my first year. And I was 200 pounds after my first year of university, and I continued on doing weightlifting.
What did you do? Because literally that was you're describing my life. Like I was
I'm not sure you don't weigh 200 pounds.
No, but like that's the thing is like up until that point I was nothing in high school. I got to university. I was playing high level rugby. I needed to gain weight. I was trying out for Canada. I got invited to a trial, and they said I had to be 195. So I tried to get from 165 first year university to 195. Yeah, I did like a gallon of whole milk a day for 8 months. I was eating like pizza and Lucky Charms. What did you do? I tried everything.
I think for me, it was, I was probably hitting puberty at a late age at that time. And I think for me, it was working out and eating.
Yeah.
And I didn't have any kind of a program. I worked out on my own at Carleton University. And it was probably the wrong stuff I was doing. It was a lot of,
bicep curls.
Yeah, bicep curls and bench press. And I'll tell you, I gained 40 pounds. And that was just nothing. Like, I wasn't following any kind of regime or program. I think it was probably with the fact that I was in puberty at that time, 18 and 19 and going through it late. So, and I've kind of maintained that weight a little bit heavier now than, but maintain that weight and maintain that passion also for lifting weights.
Interesting.
That's a cool story.
Yeah,
I did not know that.
And, university, and then continuing on in the policing world, I was involved in, doing, I worked out at the YMCA, and then I worked out at Greco. Used to have a gym prior to being called Greco. I went through the Greco world as well, and then Capital Strength. And then 2015, I decided to get involved in, 2014 probably, I decided to get involved in powerlifting.
Oh, sick.
So I did I'm a very competitive person, as you probably both know, and I 2015, I wanted to go through a powerlifting contest and decided to train for that, and did squats, deadlift, bench press, ate, and tried to get my weight down, and obviously didn't. I went to 220. I actually close to 220, as opposed to reducing to 200 pounds. And after that, I did very well in the powerlifting contest. And after that, I said, I'm going to try something different.
Yeah.
And different to me went, competitive, come into CrossFit. And, you're talking to people, because at that time I was, 47, I guess. At that time, people were saying, don't do a CrossFit. It's not going to help you.
Yeah.
You got a bad back to begin with. Your mobility sucks. It's going to be even worse. Don't go down that road. You can hear all the naysayers, and I think for me, I wanted to make that judgment myself. It's funny because the day I had an interest in, I called Reza. Actually, I recognize his. I didn't know him at the time, but I recognized his voice. And I called Reza and I said, "Hi, my name is Mark, and I'm with the Ottawa Police, and I want to come and try CrossFit. Can I come to one of your classes?" He's like, "Ooh, have you done like the basics class?" So I go, "Well, I don't really need the basic class." He goes, "Huh, you probably do." And I said, "Well, I've done. I don't know if you did powerlifting and stuff like that." He goes, "Well, let me see what's on the class for tonight." So he goes, "Yeah, I think you can do the class. Not a problem. Come in and see me, and sign your waiver." That was in January 2017. So I came in, and that class, it was heavy cardio that night. It was sprints in the gym, and then you had to do some rowing, I think, and there was a couple other strength exercises. And I pushed through it. I worked close to the defib. Obviously, worked out close to the defib that night. And you know what? For me, it was that was like my first step, right? To being part of the CrossFit community, and more specifically, getting myself better and in better shape.
Who? No, go for it.
I was just gonna say I remember that vaguely, but I remember as soon as I don't remember the phone call, but I remember when I met you, I was like, I love when police officers walk into the gym. Like if a police officer walks into the gym and they're like checking us out, I
go full salesman.
I go full salesman because I love when police officers train here. I feel the same way about fire and paramedics, but a little bit more so with police officers, because police officers, their job is to keep us safe. And I think they need to be in better physical fitness than a paramedic or a firefighter. Like, firefighters also have a very physically demanding job, but, like, I can't help but think, like, just being part of that background, like, if I'm ever, God forbid, in a situation where, like, I need a police officer to, like, save me or help me, I want them to be fit. And, like, I feel the way our society's shifting, that's not the top priority of most police officers. So when we get a police officer walk through the door, I'm like, I want you here, So.
Yeah, interesting.
I remember that because I remember.
So it was my background. It wasn't that I was good looking. That was it.
No.
I want you here. Cause
to be honest, it was your biceps.
Yeah. Like those can do some pull-ups. Yeah. Who were the naysayers when you said before you had to do? Who are the
some of the gyms I worked out at, they said, I'm not sure you can do that. And, some of the people that I knew within working out in the policing aspect who probably didn't know much about CrossFit, neither did I actually at the time. Although the reason why I actually got involved was because I was competitive and I was looking at Rich Froning videos and saying, I like to do that.
That's how I started.
And the other thing is, when I did the powerlifting, I was in a master's class and I said, what would my aspiration, as Reza knows, and maybe not yourself, but PT and Paul knows, is my aspiration is to go to the Masters in the CrossFit Games.
Yeah, that'd be so cool.
Right, whether I can do it this year, next year, or right, and it's all about perseverance. And I've learned rather quickly, because when I came in here, even though like Reza said, yeah, big biceps is one thing, but this gym or this actual CrossFit itself is just so different.
This gym too, though, man.
Yeah,
This
you're
gym
right.
too.
You're right. This gym too, but the CrossFit itself is just so different than powerlifting, where it's predominantly 3 exercises or 3 movements, and here it's a collection between the cardio aspect, the gymnastics aspects, the strength aspect, and there's just so many different aspects to it that it's a lot more competitive.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's cool listening to you say all this stuff, because as your coach, like I've had the privilege of watching you like get so much better since the day you've started, right? Which like I'm just thinking about like your squat, even your squat. Like forget the gymnastic stuff. Like you squat way better than when you first came. Which just something to go against the naysayers. Like it does work,
Yeah, obviously. Yeah, exactly.
Well, my shoulder mobility is 5 times better here than it was before I even started.
And your hips too. Yeah. Like you can. Yeah, I remember like I used to have to bug you to get below parallel and like wall balls. Now it's not a problem.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Yeah, that is really cool.
That might have been lazy. It's not flexibility or mobility.
And you can still strict press more than me, so.
Did you do any, like, did you have him doing any like targeted mobility work, or was it just like that was, because I mean, like, obviously if you squat 1,000 times your mobility is going to get better in the squat, but did you have him doing extra stuff, or?
No, not really. Like he's always on my case about doing extra stuff, and like I want to do this and do that, and I always tell him like just show up, do the work. If you can fit in some priority work, do some priority work, and like I feel pretty confident in saying like it's been working.
Yeah,
like
absolutely.
The bar muscle up, like conquered that recently.
I remember that. That was cool.
His squat, like I said, like it's like I love watching. Like it's just so cool to watch athletes. Like, and I love that you talk about perseverance, because a lot of people do this for like a year and they're like, oh, it's so hard. I'm not getting better. And it's like, well, fuck, man. Like, things in life take a long time. Like if you want to get really good at something, like it's gonna take a long time. Like you in the police force, like you applied, didn't make it, and then like didn't stop, and like what did you say? Like 3 years later, you got that. So that's like it's not something that everyone's looking for, like a quick fix. And it's like that's not what this is. It's a long-term commitment.
One of the first, and probably within the 6 months that I was here or whatever, Pat Valor was here.
Yeah.
And I actually had a chance to watch him work out, and then I actually had a chance to talk to him. And I told him, I'm with the Ottawa Police, and he's he's in chiropractic school eventually. Yeah. Anyway, I was talking to him about his life, and I said, what are some of the things that you, for me, aspiring to be a CrossFit Games Masters person, what would you suggest? Or what were the key
I remember
issues?
that. You asked him for like 4 things or something.
And he actually gave to me still on my phone. And one of the things was, it's a journey. Like, this is not a sprint. It's a marathon to get to that. And don't expect, because, you can do bench press. You can increase your bench press, and you can see noticeable change over 1 week, whatever, maybe 2 weeks, a month, and you're going to notice it. Here, you don't notice those quick things. And I'll tell you, Nate, that was frustrating for me, because, again, I'm a competitive person.
I get it, dude.
It's very frustrating to say, holy shit, man, I've been here for 6 months, and I still can't do a muscle up. How come I can't, right?
Can I add to that?
No.
So this is you're going to appreciate this. Someone was talking about Pat Valor and how long he's been CrossFitting, because everyone thinks that he's relatively new to the sport, but I'm like, no, actually, like Pat was CrossFitting when I started CrossFitting. So we pulled out the leaderboard, and I beat Pat Valor in 3 CrossFit Opens. My name was ahead of his on the leaderboard.
Right.
Like
Wow.
2012, 2013, and 2014.
Yeah.
And I just thought that was really cool.
Yeah.
Just to touch on what you're talking about, right? Like, what he was telling you was not bullshit. It's legit. Like, this kid's been fighting for a long time.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Well, and you can, it's definitely interesting you bring that up too, because you can pull a lot from your experience with the police, and like you've done this before. Like, I think a lot of the people who fizzle out, I mean, no, you can't justify, but they're generally, I'd say they maybe are people who haven't gone through those type of struggles and perseverance, in the sense of like not just struggling with things, but actually being patient and persevering to the point where they achieve what they wanted. And they don't understand the value of that. And like, you probably see it because you did that already with your career, that now you take the 10 years and you will be the master.
Were you looking for what Pat sent you?
Yeah.
I think I have it.
Yeah.
Because I think you sent it to me.
Pull it up a little bit. You can angle it
The first workout that, like, outside of the one, like my first workout, which cardio based, there was another workout we did shortly there afterwards, and it was overhead squats. Right.
Yeah, that's always humbling when you first start out.
Yeah, and shoulder mobility, obviously, and you're not getting below parallel. And Gherkin, one of the members here, right? It was a partner workout, and he said, "How are you with this?" I said, "I've never done overhead squats. My squats are pretty good. I felt because of my powerlifting and stuff, but." I did that, and I almost thought I was going to snap my shoulders, and I thought I was going to, my knees were going to buckle. And
I found it.
And oh yeah?
3 tips from Pat. Number 1, be patient. Have a realistic, tangible goal. Give yourself a long-term plan. This shit doesn't happen overnight. Number 2, no, you asked me to ask him.
Yeah, that's right. That's right. Yeah.
Number 2, identify your deficiencies. Listen to your coaches. They know your deficiencies better than you do. And number 3, be realistic with your time. Use your time in the gym as effectively as possible.
Yeah.
There you go. Interesting.
And I live by those. Well, except not listening to my coach.
Yeah.
You were talking about snapping your hamstring?
No, it was my back. So Gherkin's looking at me, and I'm struggling with fucking 20 pounds on the barbell.
Yeah.
Right? And then Pete comes. It was PT was here, and he's looking at me going, "Yeah, you might want to drop those weights too." So even the bar, I found it difficult to do an overhead squat, right? Because of mobility, because it's not an easy exercise to do. So
yeah. Well, and the hard thing I'd commemorate you for is sticking around here when you're first starting out as a competitive person, because I was the exact same way. I still am very competitive, always have been. And when I first started, I started at a hole-in-the-wall gym in backcountry Nova Scotia, where day one I was the coach. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I had never done CrossFit before. I stepped in there, and so there was no one to tell me not to do something. So even though I couldn't overhead squat properly, I still would do it or try to do it and try to make, you know what I mean? Like, yeah, like there's videos of me moving. Oh boy, like it's bad. And luckily I was 17, 18, so I didn't break anything, but I feel like at an older age you might have been able to. But I mean, coming here, best coaching in the world, you know what I mean? Like seminar staff members coaching you. It's not exactly like there's too much room for you to be competitive and let your ego show through, because they probably had you at a PVC pipe for a long time. You know?
It's a rather humbling experience too, right? But you look at the growth, and Reza spoke about, you look at the growth, and I see it here, and I'll tell you, my colleagues do too, because I play hockey with some of the guys in the police league, and I work out with some of them outside of here, and they're like, holy shit, I'm 50 years old in December. I feel 50, but And the other thing about this gym is, generally, I'm not sure what your average age would be here. Maybe 23, 25?
No, I feel like it's older now.
Really?
Yeah,
I would say
I don't think there's many people younger than me.
I would say 35.
That's the average age?
I would say so, yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
But you got to remember, like, a lot of the people who are actually 35 appear as if they're like 25.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah. There's so many people.
Well, because everyone's like healthy. You know what I mean? Like everyone's super healthy. You're a 35-year-old you deal with, like, in your job probably looks 35 or older, right?
Yeah.
Everyone here's super healthy. Like even you, like you don't look like you're 50 years old. You know what I mean?
No, not at all.
Write that one
down. And that's the other thing when I do my workouts.
Yeah.
I like to keep up with the younger guys, like Angus and Benny, those guys, and that keeps you going, that keeps you motivated. Sometimes not healthy, because I said earlier before we started the podcast, is my wife is afraid I'm gonna have a heart attack here, which is why I do work out close to the defib, and Angus made fun of me for that. Because there's some times where I'm very close to flatlining, I think, but I keep pushing myself. And a lot of we spoke about this earlier, the workouts, maybe not a lot of them, but it's a mental struggle. I'll tell you, one of the hardest workouts I ever did was Murph. I've only done that once, and that was probably the most mental struggling workout I've ever done. Right? When you get to that last mile and a half run, and I didn't wear a vest, by the way, when that last mile and a half run, and I was
hurting.
Oh, I was hurting.
Yeah.
Right.
That last run sucks.
Yeah. But that I got that information, my foster mother got a 25-year recognition for fostering, and I met her. And I never had any baby pictures, so I had, because I was a year and a half.
You got to pick them up.
Yeah, she gave me some baby pictures, and then she talked about.
Do you still talk to your brothers and sisters?
I've never met my brothers and sisters.
Holy shit, that's crazy.
Yeah.
I feel like I'm probably just gonna leave that in, because that sounded pretty interesting.
Yeah, I just didn't know that about Mark. And
interesting.
I feel like you should like write a book. That's
yeah.
No, like I mean, and that's something we just cut off for a sec, but I just wanted to like rewind a little bit and talk about what Mark's role is with the Ottawa Police.
Yeah, go for it.
Because he's not just like your everyday constable.
Yeah.
So I'll let him talk about that.
Yeah, again, I'm in my 22nd year of policing, and my job right now is an inspector, and I oversee covert operations, which is guns and gangs, intel, surveillance, and drugs. And you know, so you work your way up into the ranks.
Yeah,
work
that's
your way
what I
up in
mean.
the ranks. You start out as a fourth class constable, then you have to work your way up to a first class constable, which takes 4 years, and then you have to be a sergeant, which takes time. Then you have to be you apply to be a staff sergeant, which I've done, been successful, and then I was promoted to inspector. And now I'm in a pool of 3 of us to be a superintendent. And the superintendent is the last senior officer rank before you're a deputy chief or a chief. So for me, I'm very fortunate in my career because of how I've been successful. And a lot has been my competitive nature, but also my integrity and my perseverance.
Right.
Because you want to do well, you want to succeed, and you want those people around you to succeed. And again, I alluded to this before. You know, given my background as a child and what happened to me in my life, it's easy for you to go the opposite direction. And I'll tell you, when I worked at YSB as a counselor in the Sherwood Detention Center, one of the things I always counseled kids was, you know, because you get these kids and say they're a product of their environment. A lot of kids in there that come from dysfunctional families. Their parents are substance abuse users. They're truant from school. And kids were easy to blame other people. And life is about decision making. And you know what? It's easy for you to deviate to one side or the other and blame other people for it. And I've also what I said to kids back then, and I still do, right, is that you make a decision. It's easy for you to say, I'm going to go this way because of my life. Well, great. It's easy. That's the easy way out. It's a lot harder for you to persevere, and I've done that in my work career as well. And I do it outside of my work career within the CrossFit gym. Because you want to succeed. It's a healthier life. You can sit back and say, "Fuck." I shouldn't be swearing, but you can just sit back and say, "You say, you know what? It's easy to sit back and say, look what the fuck happened to me, and why am I? It's easy, I don't have to be successful. Screw that, and blame everybody else."
I love that.
That's cool coming from you, especially because like it's really easy for someone who hasn't been through that kind of shit to say that, and kids to just kind of like be like, "Okay, whatever." But like you're the real deal. Like you've been through that. Like you've been through the system.
Well, and it's cool because that's so relevant, especially nowadays, especially with all the ways to complain. You know what I mean? Like social media has offered a lot of tools to complain and a lot of tools to compare yourself to other people. Not saying that stuff wasn't there before. It's just maybe a little bit more in your face now, which is fine. But there's a lot of people who are doing that. And like, I don't want to say I came from a similar background because I definitely didn't. But I had like issues at home. Parents got divorced, that split up, like little things, right? And I always remember like growing up, anytime I would talk to another kid who had divorced parents, I kind of felt like I had a little bit of an ability to speak my mind with them. And it was always the same thing. I'm like, what the hell are you complaining about? Like, yeah, I get it. Like, it sucks. It's not an optimal situation. But, like, Jimmy's parents are together, but Jimmy doesn't affect you. That's not your life. Like, you got to make decisions for you. And, like, the thing I always relate to is, like, what's the alternative? You know what I mean? Like, yeah, you were brought up in your situation, and it sucks. Absolutely. But you're going to sit there and think about it sucking. That's every moment you're losing from making your situation better. You know what I mean? Like, you're not going to go back in time and change it.
It's easier to do, right? It's easier to feel bad for yourself than
do
something about
100%.
Yeah, but it's just, where is that getting you? You know what I mean? So it's cool that you were able to have that mindset.
Yeah,
you know
like
I
worked for the Youth Services Bureau at Sherwood and the William Hay Detention Center as well. And, like, I just felt like a lot of the times I was telling these kids what I felt was right and what they needed to do, which is, but I find it really cool just having done what Mark's done, given his background, to be able to tell those kids like, hey, suck it up. You know?
Yeah,
it's
seriously.
Not so bad.
Yeah, exactly.
That's cool.
Exactly.
Hey, when I worked at Sherwood, I was never really, I would never really get into my life because I certainly wasn't there to tell them about my life.
Yeah.
But there were opportunities for me, and I felt it best for these kids to say, listen, look where I am now. Because again, if they don't hear that and hear from a person who's successful, then there might not be any options for them. And I'll tell you, it's funny because when I was a police officer, and I remember this vividly, I was a staff sergeant overseeing guns and gangs. And I got a call, my extension there, and a female on the phone, and she goes, "Is this Mark Paterson?" I said, "Yeah." She goes, was your name, and I had a nickname, it was actually Epi. EPI was my nickname. And a lot of people actually knew me as Epi. That was my nickname.
Right.
Why?
And that, I'll tell you that story off podcast. Basically, she goes, I don't know if you remember me, but you were at Sherwood Detention Center. I said, yeah. She goes, you told me a story about your life, and she goes, it really hit home for you. I just want to know, this is the only person who's ever told me this story, that one of the clients from Sherwood. She goes, just let you know, I am now a mother of 2 kids. I'm a real estate agent. I got my certification. I went to this school. I turned my life around. I don't do drugs. I don't do anything. She goes, I thought it'd be nice for you to know that. Because I heard you on the radio. She goes, I thought you were the same Mark Paterson.
Yeah.
And I wanted to let you know that you were an inspiration for me to turning my life around.
And
that's so cool.
That makes it all worth it,
Yeah,
right?
100%.
One person.
One person.
All it takes.
Yeah.
That's so sick.
That is really cool, man.
But it's nice to hear stories like that because that's generally the anomaly, right? You're not going to hear stories like
when you were back in the day, was Sherwood across from Mooney's Bay?
Yeah.
Okay, because it's gone now.
Yeah, they're
Yeah.
moving it. Yeah. I think it's still going to be a YSB building, but I don't think it's going to be Sherwood.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because I just remember like before I worked there, like all the Hope Beach days, like nobody knew what that building was, and it was like an open custody jail
Facility,
essentially. Like,
wow.
yeah.
Huh. I didn't know that.
Have you ever been to William E. Hay?
Yeah. Yeah.
I used to work there too. That place was scary. Max security.
For kids, though?
Yep. Young offenders.
Scary in what way?
They didn't keep good kids in there.
Right.
They were like, it was jail, man. It was
Yeah.
jail.
Interesting.
And some of the kids were serving adult sentences.
Yeah.
So, their youth sentences as adults.
As adults.
So, like, let's say they got sentenced when they were like 21 or 22.
Right.
They couldn't put them in an adult. Like, they served their youth. Some cases they served their youth sentence in the youth detention.
Yeah,
center.
when they were 18 years old.
Yeah.
Or 19, yeah.
I
Crazy.
scary.
Yeah. No kidding. So that's really cool, though, that you had that experience with her. Do you ever do any kind of like, I don't know, do you train people? Do you have any impact on like people coming up through the police force now, or like how does that work? Do you ever do any like speaking in front of them? Or?
No, I think I rely on other people as to do mentoring. I'll mentor people through our promotional process, sergeant and our staff sergeant, to help them through that process because I'm all about developing people.
Right.
If they want to get to the next rank. I don't do any kind of life training or whatever like that.
Right.
I'll tell people my personal story if it's a benefit to them, and there's certain portions of my story that I won't put on podcast because it's not relevant and not, it's not about woe me.
Yeah.
Right. Everybody has their negative aspects in life, and everybody has to go through to be persevering.
Yeah.
And I'm always about putting things in perspective, and I find too much in society now people don't put things in perspective.
Yeah.
And this past weekend, I was a hockey coach because both my boys are hockey players. My youngest is now at St. FX playing lacrosse, and my oldest is still playing junior hockey. But this past weekend, I had to go to a funeral for a boy that I coached last year who was tragically killed in a motor vehicle accident where his best friend ran over him. And going to that funeral and listening to the eulogies and stuff like that, let me tell you something, it makes you put life in perspective and all the small worries you have about in life and see what other people are going through and their the trials and tribulations they have to go through. It certainly makes you put things into perspective with the small things that we have going on in our world.
Yeah, like I mean that just echoes the point you said earlier too about like your situation and understanding that like you have a choice whether you're going to try to better yourself or not, and like that echoes it completely. Like that's exactly it, and it's so prominent in the world. People not understanding perspective. Like we live in North America. Like let's just start at the fact that we were born. You know what I mean? Like it's a 1 in 4 billion chance that you're become a human being. Like those are pretty incredible odds. Like we won the lottery 60 million times just being alive. Yeah. Let alone the fact, okay, we live in North America, which means we're better off than 6 billion people in the world or more for the most part. Yeah. Do you know what I mean? Like. Yeah, people have such a hard time putting even just basic things like that into perspective, and then there's moments like those where it's awesome if you can take that from it. But
yeah, and being I don't know what's your oldest member here that's not part of your seniors class.
Bradley?
Or,
Steve Bradley, 69.
69.
Yeah, he just walked in.
Okay. Does he do the regular classes?
Oh yeah.
Oh, actually, John
Every
Kennedy's
day.
in his 80s, I think. He does the mornings.
Yeah, John Kennedy and Steve.
yeah,
They both do the 7 a.m. usually.
Yeah, I think
Yeah.
Steve, I met him before.
Steve, you've met Steve for sure.
Yeah.
John's older though. John's older than Steve. He's 80 some. But it's funny you talk about the seniors class because they all just walk in.
Yeah.
Yeah, you know, a guy who's 50 in December is I like to mingle with the younger crowd, and when I first came in here, nobody wanted to talk to me because they found I was a police officer.
Yeah,
and,
it's intimidating, man. I was a little nervous when I first met you.
But now I joke around all of them, and you know, like Angus and Benny, those guys, they all make fun of me, and you know, and I like to banter with them and be competitive with them. But it's also to tell stories. I'm about developing people here as well. As Reza knows, you know, I'm trying to get people that are, whether it's educators, because my wife is a principal, and trying to get them into that world and getting them jobs
Yeah,
there.
actually, so several people that, like, you've hooked up so many teachers with Marnie,
Oh yeah.
his wife,
Yeah.
to teach at their school. I didn't know she wasn't at Roberta Bondar anymore.
No, she's at Manor Park.
Yeah.
At Benny, yeah. They moved her. Asked if she wanted to move, and she's down at Manor Park.
It's funny, every time Liz teaches for Marnie, she
Yeah.
comes into the gym, and Liz is always in a really good mood, but she's in a better mood. She's
Better
like,
mood.
I'm like, what are you so excited about? She's like, oh, I worked with Marnie today. She's just pumped.
You bring that up, but you know, Marnie and my wife had the conversation on the weekend, and she goes, because they're always short on teachers, supply teachers, and she goes, man, you've saved my life, because Benny worked there, and now Liz, and you know, Benny worked out, and now he's at another school and has a permanent job there, and now Liz working there. I think it's important, right? One of the things that I heard, maybe a negative knock on CrossFit, was that it's a niche, like it's a very tight knit community, and they're very cliquey and stuff like that. And you hear that thing. When I come here, it's to work out. But I like to banter with people. I like to help people if they need them. And, you know, whether it's in the job world, I'm all about recruiting people. Dan, member here, got hired. There's another Shelley. We're trying to get her hired. There's other couple of people in the process. To get them hired here as well. Because I see that they're good people. Yeah. They got the background. They got the physical fitness to be hired. And you know what, the knock on, you know, outside the mobility aspect of CrossFit, is that you know, it's a very cliquey community, and you know, when you're in CrossFit and you're part of that community, and you go out with the CrossFit people all the time, and it's a small. I mean, I don't go out with people here. I think I go to a couple things, Motion Ball and the Christmas dinner and stuff like that. But I don't grow up with just the CrossFit people. Maybe the younger people do. For me, it's more the getting in shape and mentally prepared. But also, hey, if I can help better somebody and give them a job opportunity,
it's huge.
Yeah, that's just the community thing.
Well, that's just
talks about,
oh
right?
man, this is like the biggest networking experience anyone can ever do. Like, if you need a job, come to a CrossFit gym and just talk to people. Like, the opportunities you can get from doing that, the opportunities I've personally got from doing that, like, is just insane.
Yeah. You spoke about the coaching here before, and even though I haven't been here as a CrossFitter for, you know, a year and a half now, and I think it was a couple of weekends ago. I was texted Reza. It was the first time I was down in Markham at a conference for policing.
Oh yeah.
And I said, you know, I'm going to try a different CrossFit gym.
Yeah.
I was a bit reluctant at the time, right? But I thought I had enough knowledge and background and ability to do it, so I went to a local gym. And, you know, good gym, but certainly the coaching wasn't to the same. Smaller gym too, but it's nice to be able to go out to another. Man. Yeah, 100%. It's nice. But I've always said to the coaches here that it's nice to see how they coach people, how they bring people along, how they mentor people, how they know what your deficiencies are, and how they can, you know, to get you better at your deficiencies and move you forward and move the needle a bit, as opposed to just come in here and say, here's a workout, just do it, and good luck with that, and we'll see you. You know, in an hour.
Well, I'm still so new here that, like, I talk about it from, like, a they, not a we. Like, I don't consider myself as much a part of it yet, but, like, when I first walked in, it was the same thing. Like, every single day I said to Rez, I was like, holy crap, like, you don't understand what it's like coming in here. Like, it's insane. Like, everything is just, like, the best. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And, like, people know that. Like, if anyone who does CrossFit around here, and by around here, I mean pretty much in Canada, they know of us. They know of the gym, and they know of it's a great gym, and people come drop in all the time because, oh, my coach at my gym in, like, Manitoba told me to come here. You know what I mean? So it's cool that you saw that too, because I saw that, like,
well, when I went to that gym, there was two people that knew. Well, one of them knew all the guys here, right? Winston, and
that's right,
and knew PT quite well, and actually was one of the first CrossFitters with PT. He told me that the other day. Yeah, and they're certainly familiar with CrossFit and their coaching here, and you know. It's a strong community.
Absolutely. Would you ever coach CrossFit? Is that
No.
something you want to do?
Are
No,
you kidding?
not into that.
No.
Okay.
No. I'm a strong
the way you're
believer.
talking
I'm
about-
a strong believer that if you want to coach,
Yeah.
oh, there's Derek walking in here. If you want to coach, you have to have the background, right, and the knowledge, and one of the other gyms.
I'm going to cut you off right there. When I started coaching, I worked full time for the Boys and Girls Club of Ottawa.
Yeah.
And I didn't know a single thing about exercise and the human body.
Yeah, I knew
When you started coaching,
Yep.
I knew absolutely nothing when I started. Literally nothing. I had been a jabroni my whole life doing bicep curls, and like 2 days after trying CrossFit for the first time, I started coaching.
Like
Really?
my education was in criminology, like working with youth.
Yeah.
I had no
It's-
clue.
It's
Even
like
it felt it was
yeah.
weird
But did
for
you
me.
take a course or something like that, or what?
Took my level 1, and then
Okay.
like now I know.
You couldn't
tons.
coach until you took your level 1, though, right?
well, back in the day, you kind of could.
Yeah, back in the day it was a free
Oh.
for all. Back in the day, if you could do a kipping pull up, you were
You
you,
could
were a
coach?
superstar.
Yeah.
If you could do a muscle up,
I remember
you were a real big deal.
I literally got my coaching job because I came in and did a 6-minute Fran, and the owner was so impressed that she was like, "Oh man, like, would you want to coach?"
Yeah.
Like I probably wasn't squatting below parallel, but like just impressed with my
Really?
6-minute Fran.
Yeah.
So I just goes to show you.
Yeah, it's all presence and attitude, man. That's usually the biggest thing. Like,
I gotta go. We gotta go soon. But I just want to say on that note about you coaching, like in a perfect world, the city I live in, every single police officer would have to do some sort of like CrossFit class weekly or twice a week, or
Yeah,
there'd
yeah.
be some sort of. And like Mark and I have talked about this in the past, and it would be sick to have him be a part of that.
yeah.
But I feel like we're far, far away from that.
Well, I mean, like it could start pretty organically, right? Like you hear of
Yeah.
a lot of fire halls that just have like a barbell and a rower, and then
Yeah.
it's one dude that's like, "Hey guys, let's go do this," kind of thing. You know what I mean?
Well, my vision is, I'm certainly along the lines of that, because I actually think that CrossFit should be brought into policing. And I don't know a lot about the CrossFit history, but brought back to policing. I'd also like to get CrossFit involved in young males, almost like a gang exit strategy.
Yeah.
Where we get people involved in gangs to CrossFit out. That's what I'd like to look at, so that we have somebody who wants to get out of that world. Bring him in and go under the tutelage of Res or whatever. And we've talked about this where I think there's certain people out there that I could select or would want to be involved, to get them out of the gang and be involved in the CrossFitting.
Well, and it'd be super cool too because man, I feel like we create some stars out of that because like those are people who would see the discomfort that is found in a CrossFit gym during a workout as like literally a fly on their shoulder
Oh,
compared to
it's a
what
drug.
they've experienced.
It would be a drug for them. Like,
Yeah.
It's like it's
We
the
would
best
create some
thing.
animals.
It's the best. Some of these guys are anger, right? They're
Yeah.
so angry. Like, give them an outlet to express that anger. Oof.
It's like name the best UFC fighter right now. Like that, they've all had backgrounds like that. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like it's the same thing. Like they find some way to be able to like put all that aggression and anger into one place and like, yeah, that'd be cool.
Yeah.
Definitely. Could
That's kind of a vision, I think, that you guys should, and my wife and I have spoken about that as well. I think there's certain candidates within the schooling environment that we should get them out there. Yeah.
We'd have to figure
Get
out
Reebok
how.
involved in there somehow,
Yeah.
right? Because we need some kind of a funding proposal too, because some of these kids
exactly.
are not under the advantage of having
Absolutely.
the ability to have money for the program.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
That's interesting stuff, man.
Maybe we'll save the marijuana talk for next time.
Yeah. We can chat about that. That would be interesting.
Wait
chat.
till it calms down.
Yeah, I know. It's a little too pop culture right now.
Yeah, we've the last 2 days it's all been marijuana. That's all
Really,
we've been
eh?
dealing with, yeah.
Well, you guys are
Cannabis
like,
legislation.
ride programs, right? Like that's
Yeah, we're all about the biggest thing for me. It's legal, right?
Yeah.
That horse has left the barn.
Yeah.
We have to get over that, and now it's about public safety,
Yeah.
making sure that the people on our roads are safe, because that's our biggest cause for concern.
Yeah, there's so many of those commercials. I haven't seen a drunk driving. I mean, I don't really watch TV, but I haven't seen a drunk driving commercial in a long time. I've only seen don't drive high commercials. You know what I mean? Like movie theaters, stuff like that. That's all
Yeah.
like everywhere
you
now.
want to get started on that stuff.
No,
It's interesting.
we'll save that for a different
Pisses me
podcast.
off.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, anyways, thanks for joining us, Mark.
Hey, thanks for having me.
I think
It's
that was
been a pleasure.
Pretty
That's awesome.
incredible. I'm pretty excited to listen back to that one.
Yeah.
Okay, awesome.
Awesome.
We'll talk to you soon.
Enjoy your day.
Bye.
Thanks, buddy.
Bye.
Bye.